Good luck.
Y'all got to calm down. Y'all got to calm down out here. We're going to say some big words and important things up here, and you can't hear if you're talking amongst yourselves. All righty, folks. Welcome to the February 27th edition of the House Commerce Committee. I'm Kevin Vaughn. I'll be your host today. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Representatives Alexander, Barrett, Boyd, Burkhart, Camper, Clemens, Faison, Freeman, Garrett, Hale, Hardaway, Haston, Hazelwood, Holsclaw, Johnson, Lynn, Marsh, Moon, Powers, Sparks, Thompson, Towns, Vital, Williams, Zachary, Vice Chairman Bricken, Chairman Vaughn. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Do any of our members have any personal orders they'd like to tend to this morning? Anybody? I will say hello to the Tennessee Mortgage Bankers Association. If you could give us a wave back there where y'all are sitting. Hey, thanks for being with us today. We are glad you are here. Now let's see what we can do to get those rates down a bit, can we? All right, folks, with that, we're going to get into our calendar. And for those of you who showed up today for item number 11 on your calendar, that's House Bill 2306. It's by a great sponsor. You'll have to come back next week because we're going to roll it a week. Other than that, I know that was a letdown for some of you, but it's okay. By the time we're done here today, you'll be really glad you came. Item number 1, House Bill 2091 by Leader Lamberth. You've got a motion and a second. Leader, please tell us what this is about.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And there is an amendment that makes the bill. It's coded 14405.
That's what I've got as well. Let's put that amendment on there, and then we will consider the bill in toto from that point on. Let's see, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor of attaching Amendment 14405 to House Bill 2091, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. You're attached. You're ready to roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman. This is the Elvis Act. And so if you hear just the first few bars of a song by Elvis or Willie Nelson or Dolly Parton or any number of stars out there, you immediately know who that is. Their voice is distinctive. It's their art. There are many songs out there, and you've heard from singers and songwriters about this song that worry about the onset of AI, where basically a computer can put in a mathematical formula millions of songs that humans have created, humans have sung, and yet it's not protected. We protect name, image, and likeness. This committee and its chairman have worked very hard on that over the years, but we don't protect voice. And so at the core of this bill, that's what we're doing, is protecting their voices from some robot somewhere or another, stealing their art and then putting it out there and making money off of it. Now, the amendment here is a combination of really work between the Motion Picture Association and some of the tech giants out there in the world and with the singers and songwriters to try to come up with some compromise language that both protects voice, but at the same time protects the First Amendment. And so that's what you have before you. Chairman, I think there are about a dozen people that have probably signed up to speak. Well over half of those are lawyers. And I don't think we want to get a lawyer fight today in this committee if we can avoid it. But they are here for technical questions if anybody has it. But there are two folks that I would love y'all to hear from, Mr. Chairman, if you would like, a singer and a songwriter, I think both of which you will recognize. And that's all I have until we have questions later. I just appreciate you considering this bill. It's extremely important. We sit here in Music City and we're in Tennessee, and from Mountain City to Memphis, we've come up with some really cool stuff in this state that Tennesseans have created. I just want to protect it.
All righty. Thank you, Leader. I'll tell you what, let's go out of session. Let's hear from the singers and the songwriters with regard to this matter. I think we're going to stop after that testimony because I think at this point in time, if we're not singing Kumbaya, we're at least humming it. So we're going to go out of session. First up, we have, well, let's do Miss Natalie Grant. And we're also going to hear from Mr. David Hodges. And so if y'all could step forward to the table there and press that icon there, get your red light on
for her.
and you each, we're gonna ask you to be concise with 3 minutes of commentary, testimony
Fantastic.
for us to consider. And let's go first with you, Ms. Grant.
Thank you, Chairman Vaughn and members of the committee. My name is Natalie Grant, and I am a recording artist and a songwriter. I am also a member of the Board of Governors for the Nashville chapter of the Recording Academy. Best known for the Grammy Awards, the Recording Academy represents thousands of artists, songwriters, and music professionals who live and work across the state of Tennessee. I'm also here today on behalf of the Human Artistry Campaign, a broad coalition of creators and organizations that promotes the ethical use of artificial intelligence. Thank you for allowing me to speak today about the Elvis Act. Your work to protect the rights of creators is one of the reasons we all love to call Tennessee home. Artificial intelligence holds great promise and will be used for wonderful advancements, but it can also be abused to steal people's images and voices. Every day, there are new stories about deep fakes and AI-cloned voices and images that manipulate someone's likeness without their consent. This is not just a problem that affects celebrities. This is a human problem that affects us all. As a mother of 3 daughters, I'm terrified by how this technology has been used to exploit teenagers. This violation of our personhood diminishes our shared humanity and our uniqueness as individuals who are created in the image of God. I'm so grateful to live in a country where I have the freedom to express my faith and my beliefs through my music and artistry. But as a faith-based artist, the idea that my face and likeness could be also used in a way that opposes my beliefs and a message that I have spent the last 25 years promoting is honestly terrifying. False and unauthorized depictions driven by AI technology can destroy relationships, it can destroy lives, and it can destroy legacies. This impacts every one of us, which is why the Elvis Act was drafted to protect all Tennesseans. The Elvis Act is very simple. It gives people the right to control their own unique selves. Without that, what do we have? I am proud that Tennessee will be the first state in the nation to grant people the rights they need to protect themselves against new digital threats. It's fitting that this bill is named the Elvis Act because Elvis performed so many different types of songs, from love songs to the blues, from pop songs to gospel music, but he infused them with his distinct voice, likeness, and personal qualities to create something new. Every individual should have the right to control their unique God-given qualities. Thank you for protecting that with this bill.
Thank you so much, Ms. Grant. We appreciate that. Mr. Hodges.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Committee members, thank you for this opportunity to speak today. My name is David Hodges. I'm a member of the Board of Directors of the Nashville Songwriters Association International, a founding member of the band Evanescence, and today a professional songwriter. In a 3-minute tapestry of words and music, my gift and my job is to get you to laugh or to cry and to remember your most cherished times in life through my songs. The Elvis Act is the first of its kind legislation that will put important guardrails around artificial intelligence for music creators, and appropriately so. The volunteer state is where many forms of the world's music were either born or popularized. From W.C. Handy and Elvis, the blues and soul sounds of Memphis formed the roots of soul, rhythm and blues, pop, and rock music. And from folk songs in the Appalachian Mountains of eastern Tennessee to Bristol, where Jimmy Rogers is credited with founding what became country music. And from Nashville, its present-day industry home, to Williamson County, the center of Christian music, is intertwined with the history, the culture, and the economy of the state. And I applaud the Tennessee General Assembly for recognizing these facts and for taking the lead in addressing this issue. Artificial intelligence is advancing so rapidly that it's difficult to distinguish machine-created music from human-created music. When technology spits out something based on ingested works created by people, something that's unauthorized, and something that an artist never sang, this is wrong, period. As a professional songwriter, every syllable matters. A single note can change the meaning of a song, and for an artist's delivery, that is part of what their brand is. They carefully chose the songs they recorded and decided to release. So when it comes to Elvis or Isaac Hayes, Tina Turner, Dolly Parton, Loretta Lynn, Kenny Chesney, and hundreds more, their likeness, their image, and their voice belong to them. It is part of the art that they make. And they are not and should not be something that for software to be able to steal. So by adding the word voice, the Elvis Act modernizes current law and makes it crystal clear that an unauthorized AI-generated fake recording is subject to legal action in Tennessee. I'm very proud that our state is at the forefront of telling the rest of the world that human creativity is important and must be protected against from those who seek to prey on it. Governor Bill Lee, Senator Jack Johnson, and Representative William Lamberth, along with members of this committee, have my utmost gratitude for taking the lead in instituting guardrails around generative AI. The Elvis Act is an important first step in what will be an ongoing challenge to regulate the music created by AI. But thank you again, and we welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you both very much. I believe we may have a question or two for you. I see Representative Alexander here has something she'd like to inquire about.
Mainly just a statement. First of all, I'd like to thank you both for being here. I know you must be very busy. And we appreciate from the bottom of our hearts what you all do for the state of Tennessee and for God's kingdom, Natalie. When I hear you sing every day on the radio, because I tune into the message. And so I hear your music quite often. And what you say in those words, I know in my heart, God has laid on your heart for me to hear them. And I thank you that you're here to protect your voice, to protect your words, and that no one can use it against you. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. I also see our own very talented Representative Joe Towns.
Mr. Chairman, you're very kind. And I've always said, Mr. Chairman, you're my favorite chairman. I want you to write that down.
Hey, I'm glad I'm back on top of the power rankings for today.
You've always been there. You're in my will. Just don't knock me off, okay? But look, for you all, thank you very much for your testimony. As the chairman has, and I have tried to, with basketball and young people playing sports, protect the image. What we probably should have done is had this included initially, because that is a part of your image. Your voice is just as much a part of the image as your thumbprint. Okay, your voice, I can tell who you are before I see you if I hear your voice. So we know it. And we always know that there are people that in this world that for money, they will do any and everything to exploit it, denying you the ability to make a living, denying you the ability to convey your accurate message, denying you all of the things that you treasure with your voice. That's not right, okay? And it's good that our guys that are leading this fight, we're being first in Tennessee to try to protect that, okay? It's so necessary. But now, for me, And this is a test now for me as to whether or not I'm going to support this or not. So it's very serious to me. All right. If you've never heard Elvis, I'd like to hear a little Elvis, a little Love Me Tender. Ain't nothing but a hound dog. Somebody need to give that to me right quick so I can kind of make my mind.
I'm the
Mine up.
professional songwriter, so I feel
No,
like
no,
the
no, no, no,
singer, it just seems right.
I don't believe you punted to the lady. I don't believe you did that. I don't believe you did that. And I'm looking right at you. You got on blue suede shoes. You got blue.
That's
I mean,
right.
come on.
I
mean,
believe in you.
You
I believe in
you
your
gonna punt to the
Elvis.
lady? I don't.
I guess for me to push it off on you makes me a bit of a hound dog. I get that.
Well
Very
played.
good, very good, very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, guys.
Thank
Great
you,
work.
Representative Towns. Hey, never get into a twist of a phrase with a songwriter. I can tell you that. That's a losing battle. All right, we're going to go back into session. For those of you who were with us 2 weeks ago, you know that we chewed this thing up one side and down the other. And what the issue was is that we were all pulling in the same direction, but as we all are very, very acutely aware of, it's the words that matter that wind up on the paper. This was not an easy bill to ferret out all of the issues to all the creative communities that we were affecting. I got to tip my hat to our bill sponsor, Leader Lambert. He got on it this weekend and stayed on it until we were able to have something that everyone could agree to. And I'm really appreciative of your diligence in seeking that middle ground that we could look for. Before we call for a vote, I saw Leader Camper down there. Also, another one of our very talented members here. By the way, and members, I think while I'm not so sure there's not some agents out here, so look your best, sound your best. Okay. Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Leader Lambert, for working with us on this bill. Representative Towns is right. We do want to protect people's image and likeness, their voice, but I personally had some concerns around documentaries and things like that. I didn't want the motion picture industry to be negatively impacted by it, but the leader, he assured me, look, let's work together. I'm sure we can come to a happy medium. He didn't want to impact that community either. And so I really appreciate the hard work you put into it. And oftentimes up here, people feel like we're so on opposite sides of things that we can't find a way to work together, but we do find a way to work together. And it's important that we do that for Tennesseans because that's what people expect us to do. You know, look at the issue, attack the issue together, and then come out with something that everybody can live with. So I really appreciate it, Leader. I appreciate the call. And I'm looking forward to, more great things in this industry. Representative Towns may get his contract finally. But thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Leader. I appreciate it. Thank you all for your testimony.
Thank you, Leader Camper. And folks, again, thank you so much for being here. And I got to give a shout out to the motion picture industry folks that are here. They came in and the words that they used rang true with some of us and pointed out an issue that we felt like needed some attention to it in the bill. And that's where I say that Leader Lambert really did the yeoman's work with regards to getting into it and finding a way to get a room full of high-powered lawyers to somewhat agree is really, really a good day's work. Before I bruise your back patting you on it there, Leader Lambert, I recognize you for a final comment before we send this thing out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And look, full disclosure, I am an attorney. And so if you ask 10 attorneys for an opinion, you will get 12 separate opinions. So especially when it deals with these issues, we are going to continue to watch this very closely. Obviously, folks have worked very hard together, but we want to make sure that we here in Tennessee definitely protect the First Amendment. And that's a lot of what's been put in here is some specific protections to make sure that folks are able to still make those works that they are able to and that we protect voice. There are several recording artists here. And Mr. Chairman, if I may ask those folks to rise for just a moment that are with the industry, if you guys just want to stand for a moment, these folks all came away. Make them welcome. Thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you. But I got my instructions clearly a couple of weeks ago from the chairman to say, look, work this thing out to where at least folks are neutral. And then we'll keep watching over the next few years just to make sure there's no unintended consequences. And that's what we have strived to do. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And if any of you are looking for talent, you got quite the pool to choose from up here. So watch us do what we do. Without any objections, we're going to call for a vote on House Bill 2091 to send it to calendar and rules as amended. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed, no. That one's done. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and thank you all.
Love me true. Love me tender, love me true.
Oh. All right, my friends, we've got some exciting. If y'all don't mind, we've got some very important issues to deal with the Reelfoot area of Tennessee now. So if you could, you must not go home, but you must leave. Representative Grills. House Bill 2523. We got a motion and a second. Why don't you tell us what we're doing here?
Not near as exciting as the last bill, I can promise you that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Am I on? Okay. There we go. This bill seeks to compensate the members of the Reelfoot Lake Regional Utility and Planning Districts from $200 a month to $400 a month, and it also allows the Board of Directors to participate in the district's medical and life insurance plans, as well as the premium reimbursement. That's what it does. What we're trying to do is get more people to be willing to serve on the board now, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. And at $200 a month, I'm not even sure they could get dessert at Boyette. So we need to get them folks paid. I understand this was brought to you with a resolution from that body requesting you to do this. All righty. Any opposition or let's go to any questions for the sponsor. Let's do this. Any opposition to the question? All those in favor of sending House Bill 2523 on to Finance, Ways and Means, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed, no.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
There you go, Chairman Grills. All right, Representative Martin. Let's talk about some roadsters, shall we? House Bill 2146. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. This bill has an amendment with the drafting code of 014036.
We are on the same page there, Representative. I heard a motion and you've got a second. All those in favor of attaching this amendment to the bill, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed, no. It's attached. Talk to us about our car auction.
Well, this legislation allows a one-time antique unique auto auction at the 5th annual Chattanooga Motor Car Festival that is being planned for October 11th, and we would love to have all of you visit the scenic city.
For those of you who've been members of this committee for a while, we do this. This is our annual homage to the Chattanooga Antique Car Show and Auction. Any questions for our sponsor? Seeing none, all those in favor of sending 2146 to calendar and rules as amended, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed, no. The ayes have it. You're off to calendar and rules.
Thank you.
Thanks for playing. House Bill 2504. I see Chairman Powers. Chairman, you're recognized, Chairman Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I've talked to the sponsor and we need to work on this bill just a little bit and maybe have an amendment for next week. And he has agreed to roll it 1 week.
All
if
right.
that's okay with the committee.
I didn't see Representative Harrison here, so good to know what's going on. We will roll 2504 1 week. I do see the sponsor of House Bill 2578, Speaker Johnson. You got a motion and a second. Speaker Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I would like to thank you and the association for working with me over the summer on this bill. I brought this bill last year, but I felt a very cool breeze in the committee. So we have worked on this and I think come up with something that all parties agree with. House Bill 2578 adds a new section to qualify as an engineer. It allows a graduate from an unaccredited engineering technology curriculum of 4 years to qualify for certification if other criteria is met. And the other criteria would be they must have 12 years or more experience on engineering projects, written employment references from 3 engineers currently registered in the state and are in good standing with the board. They must pass fundamentals of engineering, the F&E exam, and pass principles of engineering exam, the PE, known as the PE. And this act will sunset on June 30th of 2025. And that's what the bill does, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Speaker. And we've got an amendment to attach to that. Let's get that done. 13547.
Yes, sir.
All righty. All those in favor of attaching that amendment, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed, no. Ayes have it. Thank you for bringing this, Speaker. Thank you for listening to concerns. I think I'm still the only professional engineer here, and I can tell you that if somebody passes that PE test, they are indeed either bright or really lucky. And so we've examined this issue. I'm not going to tell you which one I was, Representative Freeman. So thank you for this. It's going to be open for a period of time for those who have gone through that process and meet those qualifications, and then it will be sunsetted. So hopefully anybody who meets those qualifications will apply. Representative Hardaway, did I see your hand shoot up there?
Yes, sir.
All right, you're recognized, sir.
And to either the chairman or the sponsor, the testing, the exam is the same as going through as any other engineer?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Typically, they take the F&E when they're senior year of college, and then they, or including me, take the principles of engineering, which is the PE exam, with 5 years experience typically. But in this case, we've got a longer window for someone who did not graduate from an ABET accredited engineering program.
Thank you. I'm happy to vote for a full employment bill.
Well said, sir. Any more discussion? If not, we're going to call the question on this. All those in favor of House Bill 2578 proceeding on to finance, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? On to finance. Speaker Johnson. As amended, of course. House Bill 2286 by Speaker Marsh. Speaker Marsh, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill makes revisions to the Underground Utility Damage Preservation Board Act. It has 4 main points. It clarifies the definition of emergency. It updates the notice of intent to excavate, requirement to include all electronic notices. Other words, you can text it or any other electronic means. And it improves violator compliance, which allows them to do away with the fine if they take certain training. And it authorizes the board to utilize the Underground Damage Prevention Fund to defray cost of operating the enforcement program. With that, I'll answer any questions.
All right. Anybody have any issues with underground notification they need to talk to Speaker Marsh about? Seeing none. All those in favor of passing House Bill 2286 on to Calendar Rules, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed, no. The ayes have it. You're off to Calendar Rules, sir. Next up on our playlist is House Bill 2075 by Chairman Brickens. Chairman Brickens, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, this bill is a straightforward bill that would require the Department of Revenue to procure and implement an electronic lien filing system by December of 2025. The department came to me yesterday with concern that they can't get this implemented by that date. So in the last few hours, I've been talking to industry experts and other folks on this, and I'm still getting facts about this. Just background, the department was put on notice to have this back in 2012 to establish this system. So they've had 11 years to kind of move on it. So, I mean, this bill basically was trying to put a deadline on them. And I'm going to try to work with the department and be certain that 2025 is too difficult a date to put on them. So I would like to roll this 1 week to just be sure I give them a fair chance to understand the situation, and then I'll report back next week.
Yes, sir, but you do realize you're burning one of their weeks that they could be putting this system. Oh, what's another week? All right, without objection, roll 1 week. House Bill 2266 by Chairman Boyd. Chairman Boyd, you're recognized. Got a motion and a second. Tell us about House Bill 2266, Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman of Committee. Members, House Bill 2266 is a simple but very important piece of legislation. A lady in my district came to me that manages property in Middle Tennessee and brought something to my attention that I did not realize was an issue. But apparently, the last few years has become more prevalent for a tenant to move into a property, not disclose that they have a pet. And then if the landlord or a neighbor complains of a barking dog and they approach the tenant, they will go to a online website and download a form that costs several $100s to certify their pet as an emotional support animal. And so it's the form is not valid, number one. So the tenant is somewhat being taken advantage of. But the property manager, a lot of times, if they don't have an attorney on retainer, they don't know how to deal with this issue. So they essentially let the person live there without a pet deposit. Now, the ultimate authority on matters like this is the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And so they actually have language in their reasonable accommodation section of the Fair Housing Act that address this. So all we're doing is taking HUD's language and codifying it in Tennessee statute. So this would apply to those counties that are under the Landlord Tenant Act, and it would apply to all the other counties as well. And this is what you call a win-win situation because, like I said, oftentimes the tenants are being victimized by these inflated costs associated with these documents that are not valid to begin with, and the property manager oftentimes is having their property destroyed without any compensation. Mr. Chairman, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, sir. I've got one popped in my mind after I've been contacted. Did anybody from the Association of Fake Internet Forums contact you with regards to the damage this will do to their industry? You don't have to answer that. Representative Hardaway, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. To the sponsor, will that Fair Housing Act language, the relevant language, be required to be incorporated in the lease agreement?
Sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, we're not requiring. You can develop whatever type of lease you want, but in the Landlord Tenant Act and in Tennessee statute, it's going to be in there. So, and what we have found is that a lot of property managers and property owners in Tennessee, they don't look to HUD. They look to the Tennessee Landlord Tenant Act for their answers. And so this is will just make it more uniform and consistent.
Got a follow-up, Representative?
Yes, sir. So the tenant would be made aware of the language and the meaning if they want to introduce a pet.
Chairman Boyd.
Well, one who is developing a lease agreement, they could put this in there, but there's no requirement for them to do that. And so, no, there's no requirement in here for a landlord to put this in their lease.
Representative?
And would this also apply to those tenants who are month to month without a lease?
Chairman Boyd?
This applies to all tenants and landlords in the state of Tennessee. This would be in state statute, and it's already federal law. We're just putting it into state statute to clarify for the mom and pop operators that maybe don't look to HUD for their answers.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, sir. Any further questions? If not, we will entertain the question on House Bill 2266. All those in favor of sending it on to Calendar and Rules, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, noes? Ayes have it. We are off to Calendar and Rules with 2266. And now for the second half of the Chairman Boyd Show.
Thank you.
House Bill 2110.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment as well.
All right. Is that amendment 13622?
Mr. Chairman, that's what I've got.
All righty, let's get that thing attached. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed, no. All right, fire when ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, this is a great bill. This bill will actually a lot of good things come in pairs, Mr. Chairman. If you love the first bill, you're gonna love this one as well. This bill will further solidify Tennessee's reputation as being a pro-business state. And all this does is it clarifies the Tennessee wage statute. It makes it more clear what qualifies as work, and clarifies that de minimis activities are not included in the definition of work, and as pursuant to the Porter to Porter and Fair Labor Standards Act, Mr. Chairman.
All righty, thank you. Any questions for the sponsor? Chairman Clemens is down there. Hey, Chairman Clemens, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had the opportunity to read at Jolton Elementary School this morning, so I apologize for being a little late, but I'm curious as to whether or not this bill is going to limit workers' wages or benefits in any way, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Boyd, you want to handle that one?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, so this wouldn't apply to salary. This is more hourly workers, and what this really aims to do is to preempt and mitigate against potential lawsuits, class action lawsuits involving wages. And that's why we're just adding some clarifying language. And there have been some lawsuits in other states, and so we're just getting ahead of it here.
Chairman Clemens?
Thank you. So the activities that are preliminary to or post-preliminary to the principal activity, so if somebody's working in a hazardous waste facility or something like that, they've got to gear up, they've got to put on all their equipment and things like that in a locker room or something of that nature. So we're saying that is not part of their work. Is that correct?
Chairman Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So normally the de minimis, when we talk about that, that would be like driving to and from. That would be maybe riding the elevator up or turning your computer on or a text message to a boss when you're off duty. So things like that. I mean, if you come in, you clock in, and then you have to put on your hazmat suit, I'm pretty sure that would not be considered de minimis activity. I think that would be done in, it's standard work if that's where you, the type of facility that you work in.
Chairman Clemens.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, yeah, so the traveling to, I mean, that's a separate section, walking, riding, traveling to from the actual place of performance, the principal activity or activities that the employee is employed to perform. That's a separate subsection than the activities that are preliminary to or post-preliminary to the principal activity. So, I mean, what you just described is, so if I'm a coal miner, you're telling me that once I get in that shaft and take that elevator down to the mine, that is not work. That's not part of the work. Is that correct?
Chairman Boyd.
I see where you're going with this. I'm pretty sure that when a coal miner shows up for work, they clock in, and they would then put on their gear. They would take the elevator down. They would take the train in, whatever they needed to do. We're talking about somebody that is, parks their car and walks and gets coffee and strolls through and takes the escalator up and takes time getting to their office. I think that's what we're talking about. And again, this would be your hourly type of workers.
Chairman Clemens.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's precisely it. And that's my concern. And I appreciate your explanation. And I don't mean to be a stickler, but you're only pretty sure about what I'm asking. And that's a concern of mine. And so I have some concerns about this legislation, and that individuals are going to be deprived of their hourly wages when they're not there to have fun. If they're there, they check in and they've got to get to somewhere in the building to work, whether they're carrying a cup of coffee or walking across the entire complex or whatever, that they're there to work and they've got to get where they're going. So I'm a little concerned about us limiting wages in that respect. And then also, my last question is with regards to the litigation to which you referred. Traditionally, if someone is considered to be working within the scope of their employment, if they are driving, to or carrying out a function of that job. And so that liability, so let's say if a driver is in their FedEx truck or UPS truck, they picked it up from the lot and they're driving to their first delivery or to even the warehouse from a separate location, that's in the scope of that employment. And so I assume they're going to be paid for that. But I'm questioning about the liability, whether or not this new definition is going to take them out of the scope of that. Because when you would, if they had an accident in that automobile, that is the company's automobile, or even their own in the scope of their employment, if they injured somebody, not only would they be liable, but the liability would be imputed to their employer because they're working within the scope of their employment. So is this new definition going to limit that liability in any way to the employer rather and put it solely on the back of that worker?
Chairman Boyd.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It doesn't speak to that. I guess that would be litigated if something like that happened, as you described. This is just, guys, just to be clear, this says that work has the same meaning as interpreted by the United States Supreme Court for the purposes of the Fair Labor Standards Act and the Portal to Portal Act of 1947. It does not include the time that an employee spends on walking, riding, or traveling to and from the actual place of performance of the principal activity or activities that the employee is employed to perform. And so, guys, this is pretty simple. It's cut and dried. And I sort of figured you would have some questions on this, Chairman Clemens. And I wish I was better at anticipating what you were going to ask. But this is, as far as who would be liable in a car accident and whose vehicle, I could speak to that as an insurance agent. If the vehicle is owned, liability usually follows the vehicle itself. So whoever owns the vehicle would be liable for that claim. So no, I don't think the employee would be liable for that.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got some concerns about this based on the, I guess, the lack of clarity in the answers. I have a feeling this is going to pass right out of here, and we'll take it up at a later stage. I'll speak with the sponsor prior to that, hopefully. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you. And just out of curiosity, what book did you read to the class?
It was a book about John Lewis, and it was very well received, and it was an honor to read it. It was about a young boy from Johnson City, Tennessee, who had the opportunity to meet John Lewis, his hero.
All righty. Good deal. Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Chairman. And I'm certainly happy to be part of that good and necessary trouble battalion. To the sponsor, I'm trying to figure out what the genesis of this bill is. What prompted this bill? Maybe it'll help me to better understand the purpose.
Representative Boyd.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. There have been some lawsuits, some class action lawsuits in other states involving labor and wages, and when they're gathering the numbers, they get out there and they try to pull in activities that are not in those states regarded as being work, because they're what we would call de minimis activities. And recognizing that, we wanted to go ahead and put this into statute, that in the event of a lawsuit that involves wages, that will not be considered.
Representative Hardaway.
So this definition, would it supersede a contractual agreement between the employee and the employer if they've agreed on when the work begins or when the pay begins in terms of the workday?
Chairman Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, I mean, if an employer wants to pay someone as they're driving in, or they want to pay them for activities that we would think of as being outside the scope of their work, they're welcome to do that. That would be the employee-employer relationship. But this just sort of makes this consistent with federal court rulings and federal law.
Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Chairman. So this won't interfere with the way that employers and employees are operating now in terms of an agreement on when the workday begins. It would just have an impact on lawsuits.
Chairman Boyd.
That's right, Mr. Chairman.
Representative, you got a follow-up or a last one before we go on to our next one?
Sir. I always have a problem interfering with active lawsuits, so I'm afraid I'll have to oppose the bill. Thank you, Chairman.
All
Thank you,
righty.
sponsor.
Next on our list, Representative Williams.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Boyd, I just want to say my local electric co-ops came to see me about this bill. It's a bill that they find is extremely important because of the court rulings and helps them clearly define what their hourly employees are supposed to do. For instance, when I have my guys go into the field, they know that we pay one way of travel as a part of their per diem. And then we pay them an hourly wage once they get there. This would only apply to hourly employees. In the instance of our electrical co-ops, what happens if you're in a company truck and you're driving the truck, you're on the clock. If you are on call, you are on the clock. If you drive your own personal vehicle to an electrical co-op and then get on the truck, that's when the clock starts for you because you're getting to work. All this bill does, it simply clarifies for the purposes of understanding in future lawsuits, not that any of those exist, it clearly defines when the actual clock starts, so that if there were a question about when it did and when it didn't, it does not impact at all current agreements or salaried employees. It's simply based upon those. Further clarify, it allows if someone is in a truck and they're doing emergency services, like if we had an ice storm or something like that, the moment that electrical co-op employee gets in that truck and drives, they pay them from the time they get in the truck and drive, but they don't pay them to get from their house to the place to get on the truck. All this bill does is clearly define the differences between when the clock starts and when it doesn't. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Williams. Representative Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me. Chairman Boyd, thank you for bringing this bill. That we mentioned lawsuits, but we got to make sure we remember it's frivolous lawsuits, not just lawsuits defining what work is, but it's frivolous. And I'm going to give you an example, not a ridiculous hypothetical that we can all come up with. That's not actual practical in the sense of when a lawsuit's filed. If you've got an hourly worker that comes in and they clock in, this is an actual lawsuit to define what work is. They don't wake up early enough, they go to work in this actual facility. It's not part of the work, not part of her job, not part of anything. But they actually get in, clock in, and then they go take a shower. They go brush their teeth. They take 30 or 45 minutes to get ready. That's nothing part of their particular job, but yet when they say they're not paid their hourly 40-hour week or whatnot, they're spending 6 or 7 hours in the week getting ready for the job, but they're actually on the clock, right? So they want to sue and say they're there because they're, quote, clocked in. Well, they're not actually working because they're doing things they should do before they arrive at work. So that's a practical, real life issue that we're faced with when we have a lawsuit from the businesses that file these type of frivolous lawsuits when people aren't really doing the work that they're hired to do. Has nothing to do whatsoever if that particular employee contracts with their employer and they define their employment, the scope of their employment. If that is indeed part, if they have a gym, if they have something like that that's part of their employment and that is part of their hourly rate, whatever the case may be, that is appropriate under this particular statute. This won't be affected. So we got to look at things that are frivolous, that are costing our businesses more in insurance premiums, more in workers' comp premiums, et cetera, for frivolous things for when people define work when they're really not working. So, Mr. Chairman, I really appreciate this bill because it defines accordingly what is already defined in the federal level of what work actually is, so we can get rid of some of this frivolous lawsuits, not just lawsuits, some have some merit, right? But these typically are frivolous lawsuits that shouldn't be in our system because people are simply not working. So we need to find what that work scope is. So I appreciate the bill, and I hope that you can support this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Next up, we got Representative Towns.
Some of it may have been clarified, Mr. Chairman, but I'm going to take a shot at it anyway. Just say you come to work and for the job, you go to another location, and then after that, you're going to another location, and then you come back to your original location. For those two trips, you're working. You know, when you're doing construction, you may have, sites all over the place, or you may have to go run and pick up some products, you never know. But the question of it is are you being compensated for that at that time? Those two different locations that you had to go.
You want to handle that, Mr. Sponsor?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mhm.
If you're on the clock, you're on the clock, Representative Towns. This just, as we've given the examples previously, if you're driving in or you're hanging out in the parking lot or getting a coffee, getting ready to clock in, that doesn't count as time if there's some sort of lawsuit in the future. But if your employer, if you have a company car, and I like the example that Chairman Williams gave, if you have a company car or you drive an electric service vehicle home and you get called in, I mean, then you're clocked in when you leave the house. So every situation is going to be a little bit different. But this just sort of makes it uniform from state to federal. It makes it consistent.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. That's good.
All righty. Thank you, sir. Representative Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the workplace, I was always, managers and employees, especially non-exempt employee or hourly employees, were cautioned not to do work before they clock in because that was actually considered work, clocked in or not. And also after they clock in, not to do frivolous things like go brush your teeth or take a shower or whatever. And the other thing I'm concerned about, where it says principal activity, what does principal activity mean in this context?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's sort of self-explanatory. It's just that it's the principal type of work that you do. I mean, that's the way I read it.
Representative Thompson.
It's again that really does seem vague to me, because I mean I might be let's say an electrician, and I'm my principal activity is to do electrical work, but getting the tools out, cleaning them off, and then putting them away and everything may or may not be considered a principal activity. And I'm just a little concerned about the vagueness of some of this language. I mean, I agree we need to have a strong business climate here in Tennessee, but it shouldn't be on the backs of the regular working people either. So I do have concerns about this. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you. Representative Sparks.
Thank you. Thank you, sponsor on this bill. I was curious what de minimis meant, and it means minimum things. I don't know how many of y'all ever worked in a factory or drove a truck for a living. I've done it. I remember daily I'd pick up 35,000 pounds. The work was so hard. I'd see coworkers pass out from the heat in the factory. I think you're preempted. I think it's smart. I could see lawyers, Chairman Boyd. Just this morning, I watched a commercial. It was ridiculous. It was saying, have you tripped and fell at somebody's house? They're wanting to sue. I could see people wanting to go back, Chairman, and say, did you have to walk 500 feet to your job and want to do a class action lawsuit? So I know there's a lot of attorneys up here. Attorneys like to sue. So I'm all for your legislation, sir.
Thank you, Representative Sparks. Representative Freeman.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. And I guess I've just got a couple of comments, and I want to make sure that I'm understanding it right. My colleague that was talking about his electrical co-op and when they pay travel time and when they don't on emergency calls, that doesn't appear to be within the language of the bill. That's an agreement that they have with their employers. And the way I read it is that same electrical co-op could decide not to pay their members. And specifically on emergency calls, you've got an employee that has agreed to work, 1 month or 1 week in a month doing emergency calls, and they can be called out 10 times to 10 different places on emergency calls. And if we're not allowing them to be paid for traveling to and from, that could be a lot of time that someone could spend that should be their free time that they could be traveling around. And anyway, that would be my concern with it.
All righty. Thank you. Chairman Powers.
Question on the bill.
Question. We got objections. Question for legal. All right. What is that? Representative Hardaway, what would that question be?
That question would be whether this legislation would be retroactive or would it be of use in ongoing current litigation?
That's a great question. And for that, we've got a great attorney. She's been itching to get on that microphone and talk today. Now to legal services. Let's go out of session though first.
Levin Middleton, Office of Legal Services. My understanding that is that it would not apply to ongoing litigation. So I don't believe that would be an issue.
No issue there. Does not apply to ongoing litigation. Another question, Representative Hardaway?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, but she can get this to me in writing. I've heard frivolous about 100 times. Is there a legal definition for frivolous lawsuits?
I'm going to take a guess that it's the same as a dictionary definition, but Ms. Middleton.
I'm not aware of one necessarily. I could always look into that and email you about it, but off the top of my head, I don't know that there's a legal definition for that.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to legal for the stateswoman-like response.
Thank you very much for those of us. We had was those objections to calling the question? Do we need to go on a vote? Or are we good? Okay, we're good. All righty. All those in favor of pass. Yeah, it wouldn't have mattered if we hadn't been back in session. I hated to have wasted that effort. House Bill 2010 by Chairman Boyd descended on to. Oh, do what? No, they did not object to the question. There's no objection to the question. We're going to vote unless there's an objection on House Bill 2110. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Make sure those are recorded with the clerk. They waved at me and said no. All right, everybody, enough with the murmuring. We're going to go to House Bill 10, House Bill 1903 by Representative Burkhart. We have a motion and a second. You've got an amendment there, Representative Burkhart.
Yes, sir. 013925.
We have a second, a motion and a second. All those in favor of attaching 13925, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. It's attached. All right. Representative Burkhart, you are in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All this bill does is change the auditing on unlimited contractor's license from a review or audit to a compilation, and that's all that change is. And it only applies to unlimited license, does not apply to anyone raising their limits, does not accredit anybody applying for a limit, simply just unlimited license. They have to renew every 2 years. They can just do a compilation. It costs Tennessee residents about $62 million a year to renew their, because there's 12,000 of these contractors. So it's about $62 million savings.
Thank you, Representative. We had a pretty thorough discussion of this one in subs. Anybody else need some further information? I don't see any hands up. So without objection, we're going to call the question on House Bill 1903. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed, noes? The ayes have it. It's off the calendar and rules as amended. And with that, folks, our time together here is finished. Feel free to congregate if you would like. We're adjourned.
Always about efficiency.
Got it.